Hi, and welcome back to Reclaiming You. Now, as you've been exploring boundaries, self-care, and overcoming setbacks over the last few weeks, you may have noticed some moments of clarity. Times when maybe you feel more connected to yourself than you had previously. Now, that connection is the heart of self-awareness, and it's what we're going to dive into today. Now, self-awareness is the ability to understand your emotions, your needs, and your patterns. It's not about judging yourself. It's about noticing and accepting yourself exactly as you are, flaws and all. And the more that you are able to deepen your self-awareness, the more empowered you'll feel to make choices that actually align with your true self. One way that you can really start to build that self-awareness is to cultivate stillness. Life can be so busy, especially if you're juggling several roles. Maybe you work, maybe you're a mom, a partner, wife. So many things can be going on in our lives. And in that busyness, it can be really easy to lose touch with yourself. So taking time for stillness, whether that's through meditation or journaling, or just sitting quietly on your own, all of that creates space for us to tune into our inner world and our inner voice. So try this. This is just a little exercise. Find a quiet place where you're not going to be disturbed. Maybe that's out in your garden. Maybe it's sitting under a tree at the park. Maybe it's lying just in some nice comfy cushions on your bed. Somewhere that you feel comfortable and have that quiet and peace. And then close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. And then ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? And it's not about trying to fix or change anything. It's about recognizing what is going on for me right now. One thing that I often talk about on Facebook and other social media is the fact that we feel our emotions within our body, not just in our minds. So being able to take that time and reflect on what am I feeling, that allows us to recognize those emotions within our body. And that stillness helps us to listen to ourselves in a way that we often overlook in our daily lives. And it's very much about practicing non-judgmental observation. That self-awareness grows when you observe yourself without criticism. Think of yourself as a scientist who's just curious and gathering information. And they don't do that with their emotional mind. It's very much done with that non-judgment. So gather that information and treat yourself with compassion. Pay attention to what emotions are coming up for you. What triggers certain feelings, whether that be thoughts in your head or how they show up in your body. Maybe if you're feeling particularly tense, you might feel a tightness in your chest, or your shoulders might feel a bit hunched up. So what are the triggers for certain feelings, and how are they showing up in your body? And then think about your habits. can you recognize any patterns in your behavior that you'd like to change or nurture? So much of what we experience on a day-to-day level is done from that subconscious mind. And it can be really good to take that time to just stop and recognize these patterns. Some of them might be patterns that we think, hey, I'm doing amazing. I want to really nurture this pattern. And other things, it might be, okay, yeah, I keep doing that. I really don't want to be doing that. So it's thinking, okay, how can I change that pattern? What can I do to start to move into a more positive pattern of behavior? And remember to be kind to yourself. Those thoughts, that self-talk, it's all so important to how we go about our day. And thinking about whether you notice any self-critical inner dialogue. Do you find yourself thinking to yourself, oh, I've done it again? Or, oh, yep, made a mess of it. Okay, no point. That is exactly the kind of self-critical self-talk that we need to stop. And the first step for that is actually just catching that thought. You don't need to even go straight to changing, because that can feel like a big jump. Even just noticing that self-critical talk is the first step towards being able to change it. So when you observe yourself without that judgment, without that harsh criticism, you're actually creating space for understanding and for growth. And don't be afraid to ask yourself the powerful questions. Often deepening your self-awareness starts with asking the right questions, even if they feel quite hard. So a few questions you might like to reflect on are, what truly matters to me? When do I feel most alive or most authentic? What things drain my energy? And what can I do that restores it? And a really hard question sometimes is, are my actions aligned with my values? Now, those questions are important questions to ask, but they're also quite challenging. So you don't need to have all the answers right away. Just by asking yourself these questions, you're already beginning that process of reconnecting with yourself and becoming that most authentic version of you. And remember that emotions are there for a reason. They're actually a guide for us. They're like messengers. And they tell us when something feels right or wrong, and whether we're feeling aligned or misaligned. So if you're feeling joy, if you're feeling peaceful, if you're feeling happy, ask yourself, what is it about this moment that feels good? And how am I able to create more of that? And on the other side, if you're feeling frustration or anger or sadness, ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to tell me? What needs are not being met that are creating these emotions? And it's important to remember that all emotions are welcome. They're not obstacles. They're actually tools for our self-discovery. And there are no bad emotions. I know we kind of start to feel as we grow up that emotions like anger need to be suppressed. And of course, any kind of negative behaviors that stem from that, obviously they are really important that we don't act out on any sort of negative, harmful behaviors, hitting things, breaking things when we're angry. But it is actually okay to feel that emotion of anger. And it's more about feel the anger, recognize where it's come from, and taking those deep breaths, allowing yourself to experience it without judgment. You don't need to squash it down. You can feel it. It's just that it's not okay to act out on it. So another way that you can keep going on that self-awareness journey is to have a journal. Writing can be a really powerful way to deepen your self-awareness. So maybe consider setting aside just a few minutes each day to make a note of how you're feeling. Was there anything in particular that stood out for you during the day? And also noticing any insights or patterns that you might be seeing. And over time, as you continue to do that daily, your journal will become a map of that inner landscape, and it will help you to see how you've grown and where you want to go next. Just looking at your journal a month from now, you will no doubt see some huge changes if you have been continuing on that journey of self-discovery. So, onto our exercise for today. Once again, we're closing our eyes, if we're able to, and taking that nice deep breath. Now think of a recent moment that felt meaningful to you. A time when you felt truly connected to yourself or to the present. And like we've done before, I want you to make that thought really vivid. I want you to see what's happening. I want you to feel what's happening. I want you to hear the sounds and smell the smells. Use all of your senses. Make it bright and vivid. And really put yourself into that moment. And when you're in that moment, that recent moment that felt so meaningful to you, ask yourself, what is it about this moment that feels so special? What made that moment so special for me? And then consider, what does it tell me about what I value or what I need? And when you've considered those questions, I want you to take another deep breath and gently open your eyes. And then hold on to that insight as a reminder of who you are at your absolute core. Now remember, self-awareness is a journey. It's not a destination. So every time that you pause and reflect and listen to yourself without judgment, you're actually building a deeper connection with who you truly are. So this week, I'm challenging you to spend a few minutes each day in quiet reflection. It might be journaling, meditating, or simply taking those few moments to ask yourself how you're feeling. Be patient with yourself, because self-awareness isn't about perfection. It's about presence. You're learning and growing and becoming the person that you are meant to be. So until next time, keep reflecting, keep listening, and keep choosing you.